Right, guys, welcome. Welcome to National Grid's Project Control's journey. I am grateful for this opportunity to talk to you about the journey we've been on in National Grid in establishing this centralized controls function. I'm Sanjay, Lodhia, Head of Governance Assurance in Project Controls. Later, you'll be hearing from Tony Abiad, who is the Head of Estimating and Cost. And then we've got a few people from our apprenticeship program. Some people have been through it successfully, some that were already on it, are still on it. Danielle Davis, Perry Hughes, and Oliver Kitchen. So I want to talk to you about the past, the present, and the future of project controls in National Grid. It's about our evolution over the years in establishing this centralized function. And really, this is about sharing our experience. It's for people that are on that journey now. You might be well on with your journey and further ahead than us, and maybe we can share some ideas later. And it's also for those who are starting out on that journey, and maybe we can pick up some ideas. But it's about learning from experiences, stimulate some thoughts and ideas. Look, I'm not saying it's perfect. We weren't perfect along the way, but we are on that continuous improvement journey. And one thing is certain, is that we have some things in common. I've got something in common with you, and with you over there. Probably 80% of the people in this room have something in common, and that is we faced or have faced the same challenges around delivery, reporting, and performance management. Nobody comes to work to deliver a project late or outside of budget. Everyone wants to do a good job. That's what project controls, done correctly, can enable. So I'm going to talk to you shortly about the past. Why the change? Why did we need to change? How did we build those foundations? What were the challenges that we faced along the way? And the change wasn't just about creating a project controls function. It was far-reaching to enable that project controls function to actually operate. Tony will then come on and talk, Tony Abiad will come on and talk to you about the present. Now that we've built those foundations, how are we going to build on those? How are we going to accommodate that changing environment? Customer focus, customer demands. How have we revised our governance structure to give that clarity, transparency, and the continuous improvement cycle that we're in now, that we call the golden thread, where it knits everything together and how one part of the process learns from another. Then we'll have some of our apprentices come along, talk to us about the future and why we still need to change, how we still need to increase that value add and what those areas of focus are, how we reassess what our customers want, how we can move from risk mitigation to issue resolution, an integrated system, upskilling our people. So, as you can see, the journey was a long one. The first part of that journey was about creating that vision and embedding it as a business as usual and getting that culture change. But it didn't start there. It probably conceived in 2011, 2012, and it was about not standing still. That first phase probably took longer than any of the others because we needed to build that trust in the organization. It was a big culture change. And to embed that sort of change and that sort of cultural change to an organization takes time. We had to get to BAU, business as usual. And then the second phase is about how we build on those foundations. We've got that monthly snapshot of performance. We know where we are, but it's backward looking. We've got that rear view mirror. So what do we want to do now? We want to know where we're headed. We want a dashboard. We want a sat-nav. We want to know where we're going. Can't stand still. Got to build on those foundations and create another step change. And then we'll go right out into the future. Competition is looming. We've got to be ready. We've got to be the delivery vehicle of choice. So now we want to know about how can we create that high beam, how can we create that semi-autonomous vehicle. We can avoid and mitigate obstacles in the road before we get there. And eventually move into lean construction. So before I go into the past, I will just give you a quick overview on the context and the organizational context of National Grid. So project control sits within the capital delivery function, which sits on the National Grid UK exec. It's organized to mirror the National Grid exec. So we have a gas construction arm, we have an electricity construction arm, etc. And project control sits alongside that. And what that allows us to do is to ensure there's a consistent approach across capital delivery, no matter what type of project you're delivering. It permits that consistent management information and reporting, and it gives that centralized assurance function. And sitting alongside that, there's also a contracts and commercial team that provides that robust contracts and commercial support that allows us to operate. Project controls itself consists of the governance and assurance team, planning team, estimating and cost, risk management, and it all culminates in the reporting team, which looks after the integrated systems, management information, and reporting. So I'm going to talk about the past and why did we need to change? We had multiple regions at the time we were thinking about the change. We were set up quite remotely. We have roughly 200 projects on the go at any one time, major capital delivery projects, capital infrastructure projects. Our annual spend is probably circa £1 billion per annum. Each project can vary in length between 1 and 3 years. So we needed that change. Regulatory change was upon us as well. There was demand from the public to demonstrate value. There was a lot of focus on the energy market, on energy prices. So Ofgem was introducing RIIO, which is a new contract that started as we started this process. And that is revenue equals incentives plus innovation plus outputs. So we were going to be incentivized to innovate, but we were effectively moving to an output-based contract. So there was a need to demonstrate value. What were we getting for every pound we were delivering? There was a demand for transparency. The industry was also changing. Competition was looming at the time. Demand forecasts are changing, and they continue to change. We couldn't stand still. We had to enhance National Grid's reputation. We're already performing with 99.999% reliability in our network and world-class safety performance. We were already performing, but we couldn't stand still. We had to move forward. So at that time, where were we? We were working within a number of National Grid alliances. We were embedded within alliances. There were regional models. That worked well for what we needed to do at the time. But what we didn't want to do was become overly reliant on that supply chain for those functions. We don't want to water down our expertise in project management, project controls, reporting. We needed to have that internal expertise. We needed to become an informed client. The regional setup also meant regional reporting, which meant non-standard reporting formats, slight differences in how things were reported. And that meant some offline systems, which again has its own inherent problems with management of core systems and aligning all the data into core systems. So we needed to change. So like I said, that change was to fix things like that standardized reporting and the centralized assurance. But it wasn't just about creating the project controls function. We had to have a number of changes around the organization to make that function operate. So it starts with clear vision and strong leadership. At that point, the visionaries in Ian Galloway and David Birch, who started us on this journey, sold that story to the leaders. The leadership bought in to what we were trying to do. They understood the benefits that can be realized from having strong project controls. And with that buy-in, we've got that single voice to reinforce that message. We needed to make an organisational change to accommodate the function that we were creating. Systems needed to be implemented. We needed to make contractual changes, and those contractual changes were not just about changing our contractual relationship with our supply chain and having a more traditional contracting relationship, but it was also about introducing contractual terms that would enforce the submissions from our contractors in the format that we wanted, and the format and frequency that we wanted as well, to our breakdown structure. So we contractualized it all. Then we needed to ensure our people were brought up to speed, their capability was there, training was provided. And like I said before, the culture change needed to be embedded. With all of that, we could then ensure that project controls would succeed. But as you know, change isn't received well. It has its challenges along the way. Sometimes seen as interfering, sometimes bureaucratic. Some people say they're already doing this. Others hope it will go away in time. We had some physical obstructions as well as non-adherence to processes, but we overcame it with that strong leadership. We sold the story. We sold the benefits from top down and bottom up with consistent messaging. And what we tried to do was make these changes with small steps. We didn't go from where we were to where we are now. We've made those small step changes along the way. Now, in any change implementation program, we followed the rule of thirds. A third of the people will support what you're trying to do. A third will sit on the fence. And a third will not support it. So we didn't focus on those people that are not going to support it, because that can be quite difficult. It can bring the team down. We focused on the people that do support it. And we created that energy, and that dragged the middle third in. And eventually, with that energy and the momentum you get, you start picking these other people up in the lower third. But we never left anyone behind on this journey. We had regular checkpoints along the way to see how they are coming along the journey with us. Everybody came on the journey together. We sold the good news stories and the successes along the way. We had to continually enforce what we were achieving as we went and reinforce those benefits. Communications came from all directions, but it came from the top. And as a last resort, there's also the enforced endorsement and enforced adherence from the top. So we demonstrated that value. We demonstrated how this was going to work, how it would add value. We instilled that trust in the organization, which allowed us to move. We slowly changed the culture, and we moved away from the alliances, and we renegotiated our contracts. That gave us some clear responsibility, clear accountabilities, who's doing what exactly. Everyone understood exactly where they stood, a more traditional relationship. And we upskilled our people to allow them to do that. We created an estimating hub to become that informed client. We now can do the bottom-up estimates for all our jobs, benchmarking pre-tender, challenging during tender negotiations, better challenging. We set up a planning team, as expected, and that centralized reporting team, along with a publicized reporting calendar, made sure everybody understood exactly what was required of them through that monthly cycle each month to ensure the reports could be published and they were accurate. We created that consistent MI with the systems we introduced from field through to exec, and established data primacy rules within our core systems. Offline systems were gone. Everything, all the reporting's from core systems, it was all centralized. And we had a centralized assurance function, change control, and a delivery board. Created those baselines. Creating the baselines was a difficult job because you've got projects that are in flight, particularly on live projects. They're already performing, they're already live, they're underway. When you're asking things to be changed, it's difficult. We created an amnesty on those live projects, and we got them baselined. We now manage to a performance baseline, not to the sanction. We've created a management reserve across the portfolio by doing that. So, in fact, one of the first things we did was create those assurance meetings. And the reason we did that was that's the end of the monthly cycle, and that would show us exactly where we needed to focus our energies in the coming months to make sure we can make those changes and make that work. It brings out the weaknesses and the areas of improvement. We had change control, we had management, that change control board and the assurance meetings managed performance, and it controlled contingency utilization. Contingency drawdown was under change control, baseline was under change control. The result now is that we've got project managers who are informed, they know exactly where they are, they know exactly what their projects are doing. They have a dedicated planning resource, cost resource. They have a change control process that they know, and an MI team that can provide the management information that they need, and it's standardized. Contingency utilization is controlled. We've created approximately 4% management reserve across our portfolio. We've got to BAU. We have that monthly snapshot of performance and controls are in place. So we've got to BAU, the culture's changed, we're sort of getting ready for competition, that's where we are. That's where we've got to, that was where we started and where we've got to now. Now it's about the future, the present and then the future. So I'll hand over to Tony, who will talk to you about where we are now.
Thank you, Sanjay. Good afternoon. I'm Tony Abiad, Head of Estimating and Cost Capital Delivery in National Grid. I will be talking to you about the present. What we have achieved so far is being a product of a plan for several years, through which we're trying to achieve the corporate vision through simplify, enable, and deliver. Simplify process, enable our staff to make decisions, and deliver more efficiently. We have so far completed stage one. Stage one is business as usual. What have we done? We restructured the delivery reviews, developed dashboards, led to prioritization and fix. Providing performance governance, assurance, risk control, and resolution to issues. Most importantly, we have revised and make it more robust change control process. Any performance measure has to be against a baseline, and this baseline has to be controlled through proper structure. Restructured the delivery reviews. What have we done? Basically, we've introduced 2 levels of assurance. First level of assurance through the project review meetings that happens monthly. This is attended by the project team, project engineer, cost engineer, quantity surveyor, planner, finance, and other parties that may require to come in from time to time. This meeting follows a set structure and an agenda to provide consistency between all the projects. In the meeting, all the data is reviewed, checked against what's really happening on site. Is the progress as it states? Is the information on spend to date and cost accurate? Is there any change request that needs to be escalated to the change board? What about the forecast? All this data is assured and consolidated into a report that goes to the head of construction review meeting. And that is the head of construction review provides more challenge to the performance of the portfolio. Make decisions on any escalated issues and the change requests. Review if there's any actions and the timeline. How is the risk being mitigated? And this forms the second line of assurance. Summary and outcome and output of such meetings is included in a report that goes to the Director of Capital Delivery for review and challenge, and following which it goes to the monthly UK executive report. Now, this process is based on a single view of data from the core systems, accessible to all appropriate levels of management. This is very important, so they're not looking at different data. There's no question about where does this come from, I don't believe it. This is the most important thing about this process. Now, we talked about dashboards. All the data is aligned into management information to produce the dashboards. I've just included a couple of examples. As you can see, they're quite simple, user-friendly, easy to read, color-coded. This particular example shows the performance indicators for a project. Cost performance indicator, schedule performance indicator, critical ratio, percentage of project complete. It gives you a straight visual project status. Amber, maybe need to look into it. Green, it's doing okay. Red is in distress. Now, that gives you the ability to focus on the projects that need analysis and challenge. You can drill down more into the performance of project. There's two graphs on the screen. On your left is tracking the performance of a project across its life cycle, showing spend to date against baseline, against forecast, and against sanction. On the right-hand side is tracking the contingency, the initial contingency, the drawdown on the contingency, and the risk. Now, how is this any different to what we had before? Historically, we had a snapshot at a point of time. Now, as you can see, we can monitor and identify trends. If we continue with the trajectory of cost, will put the project in distress? Are we behind time? Are we likely to be behind time? These trends allow us to actually look ahead in the future, predict, and create mitigation and action, minimizing risk and no surprises. As we stated before, stage one is business as usual. Now we're starting in stage two. Stage two is becoming more efficient, driving this efficiency through building intelligence from lessons learned all through the process of a project. We call this the golden thread. Catchy name, maybe not. But this is very important. Why? We all agree that we can achieve continuous improvement from acting on lessons learned and feedback information from site, risks, and learn continuously. But from experience, in many organizations, that this is probably one of the hardest to achieve. Why? You need the right systems in place. You need persistency, time, particularly when you're very busy going from one project to another. This golden thread starts on the left with establishing, as Sanjay mentioned before, the baseline. Baseline consists of defined scope, estimate, schedule, and contingency. Defined scope is to satisfy the needs case for that project, using any available information and potentially additional surveys if required. The estimate is built based on that scope, identifying the appropriate work breakdown structure and cost breakdown structure. allocating unit rates from the library that are based on current market rates. Now, the work breakdown structure and the cost breakdown structure could be very detailed down to level 7 or 8, depending on the complexity of the project. This work breakdown structure is produced into activity schedule that goes into the tender documents issued to the suppliers, along with any information we have on the scope. The suppliers are requested to submit their prices back in the same level of breakdown. Now, this is very important so we can carry out a direct comparison between the baseline estimate and the supplier's prices. Provide challenge and questions trying to establish the level of efficiency and the variance between the estimate and the prices. Why this variance? Is it due to missing information or higher level of management, or is it site-specific conditions that we haven't accounted for, or maybe took too much account of? Information is gathered, analyzed, and fed back into the process upfront on scope and estimate. After contract award, delivery. The cost engineers track what we call the project tracker, track the cost from baseline estimate to the final outturn cost, including on this project tracker the compensation events, changes, risks that happen on site. And this is on a monthly basis. So you can see the history of how the project evolved and what changes right through its life. All that information is consolidated into the data that produces the report, as we discussed before. Now, any changes from the baseline into delivery and beyond has to go through change control process to the change board, and whether it's approved, rejected, and how it should be mitigated against. As we mentioned before, the learning is not just at the end of the project. It's right throughout. Identifying risks at procurement stage, delivery stage, and the final outturn costs. All the lessons learned, tracking the risk, identifying what risk happened, how often, what impact, fed back into the upfront end of the process. Now, we're not there yet. We're on the way. We have achieved quite a lot, but still a long way to go. And one of the hardest things to actually finalize is the final outturn cost broken down into the same initial estimate. The suppliers don't gather this information in the same format. They all have different systems, and trying to get this breakdown consistent have proved to be very hard. Now, how do we know we're efficient? We're currently developing what we call cost norms and schedule norms, the should cost, based on most efficient delivery on a minimum scope with no risk. We will be using this for benchmarking against the estimates and the prices and the outturn cost. Now, why do all this? We want to be more informed clients. We want to be more informed in delivery, providing assured, robust data handed over to delivery, so we have no surprises. We want to be able to back up any forecasts that we produce and share with the regulator and the customers. Have backup plan, have more transparency in the breakdown of cost. This will lead us into this slide. We're no longer just a support function. We are the conscience of the business. We enforce governance and assurance. And most importantly now, we're involved in the process from start to finish, not providing data on events that happened, but we're providing foresight for the delivery team, and we're providing prediction and recommendations so we can mitigate any risks prior to the event. Now I'll hand you over to Danielle Davis to talk about the future. Thank you.
So, what does the future of project controls and National Grid look like? I'm Danielle. I've recently finished the project management hire apprenticeship scheme at National Grid, and in a full-time role with the estimating team. I'm basically going to give you a quick overview of the drivers for the next wave of change at National Grid. Before I hand over to Perry, who's going to talk about what we're specifically doing in project controls to enable the change. And then I'll hand over to Oliver, who will talk about the benefits this will bring to the business and also give you an overview of our hire apprenticeship scheme. As a business, we're looking to embed continuous improvement as part of our way of working to ensure we're as efficient as possible for our customers, shareholders, and stakeholders, and make sure that we're the delivery vehicle of choice. One of the key drivers for change at National Grid is the customer demand. We're regulated by Ofgem, who are the body who seek to protect energy consumers. We're gearing up for our second regulatory period with them in 2021, which is looking to us to incentivise and provide innovative solutions for our consumers, and in turn, make our revenue. Under the new framework, Ofgem are introducing onshore competition for all of the major projects on the electricity transmission system, and that will ensure that transmission businesses are driving efficiency and reducing construction costs. We also recognise the value our customers play, both internally and externally. If we offer an efficient service for our customers, this will feed down to energy consumers. And as a business, we want to be the choice of our customers. So for us in project controls, this means we need to streamline our processes and deliver value for money by providing the business with a flexible project controls function. Another key change is on Friday the 21st of April this year, Britain saw its first coal-free day since the 1880s. And this is a small step in a new direction for the energy industry at National Grid. So for us, we're seeing a huge change in how energy is generated with the introduction of renewables, wind and solar, and also storage of energy on the transmission system. This presents an increasing challenge for us in balancing the demand on the electricity system and also what is generated. We recognise the important role that our customers play in generating and storing energy. We're also seeing a huge electrification of certain parts of our industry in the UK with electric vehicles, and this is putting increasing pressure on our transmission system. Technology also provides customers with real-time feedback on their energy consumption with smart meters and the ability to control their heating systems remotely. And in project controls, these are all considerations we have to make in terms of our business, making sure that we give the business real-time feedback on how their projects are performing and ensuring they have a choice in how their projects are controlled. As a business, we need to ensure we have a flexible transmission system to meet increasing uncertainty in the market, but also remaining reliable. We need to give customers choice about the service they receive and the price they pay for it. In project controls, that means we need to be a multidisciplined team and enable the business to have a choice in how their projects are controlled and managed. So that's a quick overview of the drivers for change at National Grid. Perry's going to give you an overview of what we're specifically doing in project controls to enable the change.
I'm Perry Hughes, and as Danielle mentioned, I'm going to do a quick overview of what we're currently doing to help us get to our future state. So you can see above 4 key areas that we're aiming for. So I'll start from the bottom. So we have foundations. So our aim is to continue to build on the foundations in place and ensure they're embedded. As Tony mentioned with the golden thread, we're ensuring that continuous improvement is ongoing and a constant feedback loop of improvement. And we're building on any changes and making sure that we're not reenacting the wheel. Okay, so next up we have the improvement plan. So part of my role within Project Controls is to help manage the Project Controls improvement plan. In January of this year, we got a new head of Project Controls, Tim Fenemore, and he spent his first 3 months at National Grid meeting with his stakeholders, his customers, and understanding their wants and needs. And from that was born the 18-month improvement plan, which started in April of this year. It's currently made up of 10 work streams, each led by a manager within our Project Controls team, and over 30 initiatives. A few examples of the work streams would be cost, risk, commerciality, systems, and then the initiatives we have simplifying our NDP process, which is our network development process. We have streamlined earned value reporting and upskilling multidiscipline. So moving on, we have systems, which Oliver will be covering the benefits of each individual system. But our main aim is to integrate these systems, reduce the time, make them quicker to use, improve accessibility. We're currently moving to P6 in the cloud, pulling all the systems together and ensuring collaboration. And finally, onto people. So at National Grid, it's recognised that people are the future, and there is a big importance to invest time and effort in development and training of our people. So one of the initiatives that we have on is upskilling and multidiscipline, and a couple of examples are that our estimating team have recently been trained in the risk system, so they can now carry out QRAs, so quantitative risk analysis, whilst creating the estimate, and that allows them to do the contingency. Another example is our data analysts can now, as well as producing the data and pulling that together, they can also interpret it, fully understand what it means, and provide commentary on that. And again, around people, we've recognised that there's an ageing workforce, hence why we've introduced the Higher Apprenticeship Scheme. So the Higher Apprenticeship Scheme is currently in its 3rd year. We have had 9 people, 4 who have successfully completed it, 5 in the process. And Danielle and I are the products of that. We're now in full-time roles. So I'm going to hand you over to Oliver, who's going to discuss the benefits of what we're doing in our future state, and we'll cover a bit more on the apprenticeship scheme. Thanks.
Afternoon all. I'm Oliver Kitchen, a current higher apprentice at National Grid. As Perry mentioned, I'm going to be talking about the benefits not only to us as a department, but to the wider business. So the first one I'd like to talk about is P6. So we are currently upgrading our P6 system to consolidate all our databases down to a single cloud-based platform. This will allow us to have great accessibility for our users, as well as the latest system will enable us to have a better view at portfolio level. The plan is ultimately this will reduce the time of our monthly cycle updates and drive efficiency. In addition to the P6 upgrade, we are looking to incorporate P6 templates. These templates will be for common asset builds. We'll be taking actual data and also using schedule norms, which Tony mentioned earlier in the golden thread, so the best estimate for that time. This will create common templates which will drive consistency across the business and across the projects. This will allow the planners to support challenge not only to the development team when creating the estimates and the plans, but also to the contractors when reviewing the schedules. In terms of risk, we are looking to implement a risk enterprise management system. We want to have a greater view of risk across the portfolio and across the business. A risk management system will allow us to consolidate risks across the business and start to identify trends in risks reoccurring, we'll be able to become more knowledgeable of how to deal with these risks and start to be more efficient with our mitigations. It'll also give us a better grasp on our audit control of risks and also make us more proactive as a business to mitigate risks. In terms of the golden thread, Tony mentioned how we are currently working really hard to get the right tools, management information and reports in place to report efficiently and to also constantly develop as a business. We want to make this BAU. We want to make it business as usual, effortless and natural. This will ensure constant development as a business and allow us to provide greater value to the wider business. It will also make us more confident with our initial estimates, plans and risks. In terms of the people, we really want to start driving and developing on the conscience side of the business. We've mastered the support role. Now we want to develop on how we are the conscience of the business. To do this, we're going to start enhancing the process as we enhance the people, making it a two-way street. We want to move away from that data processing and start, as Perry said, analysing that data, adding that value and that input to the business. In terms of the training, by creating a multi-skilled workforce, we'll be able to have project controls specialists assigned to each project. This will allow them to gain greater knowledge of that project so they can do the estimate, the risk, and also manage the cost of that project. This links nicely to our hire apprenticeship, which, to summarise, is a 2-year scheme which incorporates 6 placements, which are 4 months each. Alongside this, you'll have external training to achieve your Level 4 diploma in project management, which incorporates the APM PMQ exam. This will create multidisciplined, young, talented workforce. As Perry and Daniel mentioned, they've just completed this scheme, and only now is it the start of their journey. They'll be constantly developing and growing throughout. When you undertake the apprenticeship, you'll find you're quite a communication point throughout the teams. Having undertaken the placements in each team means you've experienced that and you've got that knowledge of each team. Therefore, people will go to you and you can link the teams together quite nicely. I will now hand you back to Sanjay, who will summarise project controls. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, I'm just going to quickly summarise. So we talked about that first phase we were at, and we got that culture change, and we've got that trust established. Removed all those regional variances and the offline systems and the data, and we've now got core systems, we've got centralised data. We do a lot of data processing there. In fact, we've got data on the quality of our data. So the value add is poking through, but we're still doing a lot of processing. So we're now in that phase where we need to integrate our systems. We need to relook at our processes, because it's been a few years. We look at our processes. There's always a better way, so see if we can streamline those. We want to automate our data processing so we can upskill the people that are processing that data to add more value and multi-skill those and provide those multi-skilled people. And then we'll listen to the customers. What do the customers want? We'll move to adding more value by embedding into the delivery teams again, while still maintaining a centralised assurance function. So we had that clear vision. That's why we succeeded. From the top down, we stuck to it. Leadership was strong. They understood the benefits and the end game, so they could intervene with one voice as needed. We had that plan of implementation, and we took everything in small steps. And we clearly communicated and reinforced those benefits and the successes along the way. But the people are at the heart of everything we do. We keep people on side, we keep them buying, and we take them along the journey with us. Not an easy task. It's important you deliver what you say you're going to deliver and when you're going to deliver, so stick to those timescales, and you've got to provide that training along the way. Culture change takes time. Culture takes time, so we don't underestimate that time. But we created those foundations, and we're building on those. We sold that vision, leadership. Could it be better? Possibly. We didn't aim for perfection along the way. And we're not saying it was perfect. We're not saying we're perfect now. But this is about not what we did. It's about sharing our experience, learning from you guys, and maybe you guys picking some stuff up from us. We set up those delivery reviews where we had to educate our leaders around what a red on a dashboard means, and that it's not necessarily bad, it's honest. We don't want to if you start managing to green, then you're going to start driving the wrong behaviours. So not only do we monitor, you saw on the dashboard, not only do we monitor the CPI, SPI with a rag, but we monitor the volume of changes that have led us to that position as well. So that's an education piece for leaders to understand. It's a different mindset to get to, but we're getting there. So it takes time. We've still got a long way to go. I don't say we're there by any means. We've still got a long way to go. But I do thank you for listening and taking your time. And if there's any questions, then we'll accept them. Thanks.